Good afternoon, boys and girls. So I hear tell that y'all are wanting to learn how to build websites on that newfangled internet thingamabob. Well, I tell you, I see my fair share of them socially inept computer nerds to know they ain't gonna help you none. And I ain't no sissy like them. No, sir, you need assistance from a fifth-generation American patriot like myself, Eric Muss-Barnes. Know how y'all can tell that I'm a patriot? Because Eric is America's middle name. That's right, them circumlocutionary little jerks, they ain't worth a darn to nobody. Well, I tell you, their bellies is more yellow than my teeth. Ain't a one of them ever done a manly thing in their lives. Well, they ain't ever saddled a horse or been in a fist fight. Heck, I bet none of them ever even smelled gunpowder in their lives. Nope, they ain't worth a darn to nobody. And that's why you need to get your learning from a man like myself. Well, I'm going to teach you how to build websites so well that when I'm done, even girls and grandpas will be able to build a website. But you know, I tell you one thing I ain't going to do. I ain't going to talk like that the whole time because that would get really irritating after a while. In all honesty, I've been thinking about building this website for the last 10 to 15 years. The reason I never did it sooner was because I kept assuming someone else was going to do it. Someday, surely, folks would figure out the proper way to teach basic web programming to new students. Well, unfortunately, no one ever has. The problem with most computer teachers and curriculums is they always skip the basics and the groundwork. Let me give you an example of a poorly created training video. So a few weeks ago, I found a beginner video teaching people how to use a computer programming language called AngularJS. The instructor started by boasting this was for absolute beginners and you needed no previous knowledge, and he would start you out from scratch. Great. Awesome. I was looking forward to seeing his approach. And one of the first instructions he gave was, use your favorite package installer for acquiring new modules. Most people will just use NPM. Wait, huh? Hold on. What the heck is a package installer? What on earth are modules? And what is NPM, right? He didn't explain any of those things. His very first instruction in a beginner video used 3 terms he didn't define. He immediately jumped into something that was obviously not basic beginner knowledge at all. And the computer industry is riddled with teachers like that. Teachers who do not help you in the least. Teachers who confuse you right out of the gate. Well, that is not the way to create educational training for beginners. And I will not do that to you. I'm not going to tell you what FTP program to use or recommend a WYSIWYG editor or show you variables in PHP code without first explaining what words like FTP and WYSIWYG, variables, and PHP actually means. I've created a number of training and educational projects in the past, from the basics of skateboarding to the basics of firearms. In fact, I've taught nearly 10,000 people the basics of firearms. This is a stadium that holds 10,000 people. As for skateboarding, I've taught over 5 million people the basics of skating. That's basically the population of Colorado. And there are 2 things I have learned when it comes to teaching people new skills. The first is to always start with terminology and jargon. Never use words the students don't understand. That's pretty simple and obvious. It doesn't matter if you're learning skateboarding or programming or baseball or driving a car or how to tie your shoes. The teacher and the student must share a common language. The moment a teacher begins to use unfamiliar words and terminology, the student is lost. Language is the most important thing to grasp in any new skill. Teachers must define words first, and I will do that in all these videos. I will never use any computer terminology or internet terminology without first explaining the words I'm using. Now, second is to always explain why things are done a certain way. There's a notion in psychology that all human beings are either leaders or followers, right? We're soldiers and generals. Soldiers will simply do what they are told and won't question methodologies. But generals need to know the reasoning behind the instructions. We need to know why this is being done. So, I will do that as well. I won't simply tell you how to do things. I will tell you why I recommend the approach that I'm teaching. So, those are the two most important things. I will always teach terminology, and I will always explain the reasons why we are doing things a certain way. Now, there are a few other things to know about these video courses. This is going to be a cumulative series of videos, starting with the most simplistic knowledge and building upon it step by step. Therefore, I suggest study these lessons in numerical order. If you just jump into lesson 9 without looking at any previous lessons, you'll probably be totally lost and have no clue what I'm talking about. I'm keeping it simple, but you still have to study things in sequence, okay? You don't walk into a Latin 4 class without first taking Latin 1, 2, and 3, okay? B, I will always provide copies of example code that you can download. C, the written articles will include a glossary of terms. And D, if you need any extra software, I will provide links to download that too. I'm not going to tell you to download NPM without telling you where you can find it. Now, I'm going to assume that you know what terms like software and links and downloads mean, but if you don't, I'll even cover those in later videos. Now, there are certain words like data, for example, which are very computer-centric, but they're not computer exclusive. Okay, the word data has become a much bigger part of our vernacular since the dawn of computers, but the word has been around since the 16th century. So I won't define terms like that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have thought about building this website for a long time, but this project is not the first time I'm teaching people this subject. This course is actually based upon a programming class I invented to train my fellow cast members at Walt Disney Studios. What I taught at Disney was only an hour-long class and far less sophisticated than this, but it contained a lot of the same principles. So, when you're all done, not only can you brag about knowing how to program a website, but you can tell people you learned from a guy who taught students at Disney. And so the last thing I want to talk about is the name. Okay, I realize that teaching girls and grandpas how to build websites is a really weird and goofy name. But I didn't want to call it something like boring, like, learning beginner website programming or, basic website development. I mean, that's no fun. Who wants to do that? I didn't want a dull name like that. I wanted something that would catch your attention. I was tempted to call it Computer Nerds Suck. And I considered that name for like an hour or two, but then I decided I wanted something a little more joyful instead of cynical. Now, in my 21 years of web development, I only ever had one fellow developer who is female. Can you believe that? Only one woman. I mean, naturally, I've had many female co-workers in various offices. I even had like a really great manager who was a woman. But I've only had one peer on a development team who was a broad, a chick, a scud, a dame, a babe. And honestly, I think that's a shame. I think it'd be cool if more females gave programming a shot. Now, historically, women and older folks rarely pursue computer development. Therefore, I came up with the name Teaching Girls and Grandpas How to Build Websites as a playful and light-hearted way to encourage everyone to give computing a chance. My goal is to articulate my expertise so eloquently that anyone will be able to construct a website. But let me be clear, boys are equally welcome to participate, okay? I don't want guys to feel alienated by the title. Teaching Girls and Grandpas How to Build Websites is merely a silly and fun name. You don't have to be female or elderly to be my student, okay? This is all about encouraging and emboldening my fellow American citizens all across this great nation of ours. Girls, boys, young, old. So I hope you find these videos and articles both delightful and educational. Oh, and one last thing, because I know people are going to ask, why am I outside in the desert shooting this video? Shouldn't I be sitting at a desk in front of a computer? No, absolutely not. Look, I'm spending scores of hours in front of a computer to write these articles, to edit these videos, and to build this website. The last thing I want to do is spend even more time sitting at a computer. I want to be outside, getting fresh air and sunlight. I mean, computers may be fun, but let's face it. Would you really respect a computer teacher who wastes his whole zombified life in front of glowing computer screens? I sure wouldn't respect that kind of weirdo. So no, as long as I'm chatting with you, let's stay away from a computer desk. And before you ask why I'm armed, what do you think? I'm in the desert, Pilgrim. And to you city folk, that means two words: coyotes and cougars. Why, I've seen paw prints big as my hand, not more than 100 yards from this very spot. Told y'all I weren't no sissy. But the good Lord would think me a coward if I just laid down like some dirty communist hippie fickin' to get my gullet ripped open by a mountain lion. Rest assured, those varmints show up looking for a fight, I'm going to oblige them. I sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And remember, kids, the world owes you nothing until you create things of value.